I used to believe that hard work would eventually be rewarded, until I discovered that estate planning folder in my parents' medical files. That moment shattered everything I thought I knew about family loyalty. "Olivia, honey, could you organize these medical records for me?" My mother Patricia asked, handing me a disorganized stack of papers before rushing back to tend her prized roses in the backyard. It was supposed to be a routine Sunday visit to my parents' Tudor-style home in Westbrook. That imposing two-story house, the one I'd spent 8 grueling years financially supporting through my nursing salary and renovating room by room during my rare days off, had become my second home. I'd always been the responsible one checking their bills, organizing tax documents, and digitizing important paperwork for my technologically challenged mother. My fingertips felt numb as I settled at the mahogany dining table, methodically sorting through the paperwork until I froze at the sight of a thick cream-colored envelope boldly labeled estate plan and will. I hesitated, my heart racing. Not because of curiosity, at least that's what I told myself, but because I needed to ensure everything was properly organized. I'd always been the dutiful daughter, the one who prevented the family from crumbling. As I turned to the asset distribution page, my chest tightened painfully. Everything, literally everything my parents owned, the house I'd helped save from foreclosure, their $480,000 in retirement accounts, Dad's new Lincoln Navigator that I'd co-signed for, even Mom's heirloom diamond ring, was explicitly designated to go to my younger sister Chloe. My name appeared nowhere except in a dismissive line reading, "We love both our daughters." My knuckles turned white as I gripped the document. Every memory flashed before me, working double shifts at the hospital to cover their mortgage, driving through blizzards to deliver Mom's heart medication, repairing leaky pipes, replacing the entire roof last December, all erased by that cold, impersonal sentence. I heard Mom's footsteps behind me. "Olivia, did you find those insurance statements?" she asked cheerfully. I stood up, will clutched in my trembling hand, and turned to face her. My voice emerged unnaturally steady. "Is this real, Mom?" She froze, her eyes darting to the paper. "Oh. Olivia, that's not. What exactly does this mean?" I interrupted, each word precise despite my constricted throat. "After dedicating my entire adult life to supporting you and Dad, I'm erased like I never existed." My father Walter wandered in from his study, coffee in hand. He placed it down with a dismissive sigh, as if we were discussing nothing more significant than the weather forecast. "No need for such dramatics, Olivia," he said flatly. "You're doing fine with your investments. Chloe, she's still finding her path." A humorless laugh escaped me. Finding her path? She's 28. She quits every job within weeks, makes unsuccessful YouTube videos, and can't even remember to pay her own cell phone bill. I'm the one who saved this house from foreclosure. I'm the one who replaced the entire electrical system last year. I'm the one who's kept this place from literally collapsing. Mom stepped forward, placing her hand over mine as if that motherly gesture could erase the betrayal. "Don't overthink this, sweetheart. I just wanted your sister to feel secure about her future." I pulled away, meeting her gaze with ice-cold eyes. "Secure. I see. And what about me, the only one who's actually sacrificed everything to keep this family afloat?" They remained silent. I placed the will back on the table like returning a declaration of war. "Thanks for showing me where I truly stand in this family," I said, walking toward the door without a backward glance. Nobody called after me. And for the first time since I could remember, I didn't feel hurt or angry. I just felt empty, a hollow coldness that penetrated to my very core. I never returned to that house after discovering the will. 2 weeks of deafening silence followed, no calls, no messages, as if I'd suddenly vanished from their family narrative. I told myself anyone with even a fragment of conscience would reach out first. Instead of an apology, my phone lit up with a message from Dad. "Olivia, the mortgage payment is due. Can you transfer $3,200 by Friday?" The bank sent a reminder. I stared at the screen, a bitter laugh catching in my throat. No acknowledgement of what happened, no concern for my feelings, just a financial demand, as if I were nothing but their personal banking service. My fingers typed back with icy precision, "I believe Chloe should handle it now. That house belongs to her anyway, right?" I placed my phone face down on my granite countertop, refusing to anxiously await their response. Within minutes, it buzzed again. "Mom, this time, Olivia, please don't be difficult. We need to discuss this as a family." I left it unanswered. The strangest part? I wasn't heartbroken. I wasn't even angry anymore. A ruthless clarity had crystallized within me, replacing every fragile hope I'd once nurtured. For years, I believed my sacrifices would eventually be acknowledged. I was wrong, and I had zero interest in playing family's savior anymore. 3 days passed before Chloe messaged, "You're totally overreacting. Mom and Dad didn't mean anything by it. You've always been the strong, independent one while I still need help. You know that's just how it is." I responded deliberately, each word slicing through her transparent manipulation. "Then prove you deserve what they've promised you. Start by making the mortgage payment yourself." Silence followed. A week later, while enjoying my morning coffee in my sun-drenched condo kitchen, my phone displayed a transfer request, exactly $3,200 from Mom. No message, just a cold withdrawal demand as emotionless as how they'd erased me from their estate plans. I hit decline without hesitation. Minutes later, Mom called. I let it ring 4 times before declining. Her text arrived instantly, "Olivia, I can see you're online. Why did you decline the transfer?" I closed my eyes, breathed deeply, and replied, "Because it's no longer my responsibility. Ask Chloe." For the first time in my adult life, I felt genuinely in control. I wasn't frantically repairing cracks I hadn't created. I wasn't sacrificing my prime years fixing other people's failures. Chloe texted again, "You're being incredibly selfish. Weren't you the one always preaching about family coming first?" I read those words repeatedly, feeling their hypocrisy. Family? The same family that treated me like an outsider, a walking checkbook? Real family is built on fairness and mutual respect, not using someone until they're no longer needed, I replied. After that, silence descended, complete and absolute. But unlike before, it didn't feel lonely. It felt liberating, freedom from a burden I'd carried for far too long. Deep down, I knew this silence was temporary. They'd return when crisis hit, when foreclosure notices arrived, when Chloe, despite being promised everything, still couldn't manage to pay bills on time. When that moment came, I'd be ready, not to rescue them, but to maintain the boundaries I'd finally established. Chloe's midnight message arrived while I was enjoying a historical novel with chamomile tea. My phone illuminated, and I instinctively knew the tone before reading, "You're blowing everything out of proportion. Everyone's stressed out. Why create drama now? It's just some bill payments. You've always handled them." A humorless laugh escaped me. "Just some bill payments?" I typed back. Easy to dismiss when you've never paid a single utility bill yourself. "I'm not being dramatic, I'm being clear. Get used to it." Her response came instantly, "You're being incredibly selfish. Don't expect Mom and Dad to forgive this behavior." I set my phone aside, feeling strangely peaceful. For the first time in years, guilt didn't consume me. I wasn't haunted by worries about their disapproval or obsessed with being the perfect daughter. I had finally crossed the threshold, from exploitation to self-respect. The next morning, I called the bank and requested my name be removed from the joint account tied to their mortgage. I methodically contacted every utility company, canceling all the automatic payments I'd been quietly managing for years. I deleted the payment reminders from my smartphone calendar, a small but meaningful ritual marking the end of my role as family financial caretaker. That evening, I transformed my modern condo. I played my favorite jazz playlist at full volume, ordered takeout from that expensive Italian place I'd always denied myself, and bought a decadent chocolate ganache cake I'd craved for years but never purchased because the money was always needed for family priorities. I slept peacefully through the night. I woke naturally, without the jarring alert of another payment notification. I drove to my real estate office feeling physically lighter, no longer carrying the crushing weight of 3 financially dependent adults. I even registered for an online property investment course, something I'd postponed for years because I couldn't spare the time or shouldn't splurge on myself while family needed help. As my independent life began flourishing, the desperate pleas from my past grew increasingly frantic. The following Monday, Mom called twice. I didn't answer. Her message arrived immediately, "Olivia, we need to talk. Chloe doesn't understand how to pay the internet bill. Can you walk her through it?" I left it unanswered. 2 days later, the internet service got disconnected. Chloe says she can't access the account. We don't know what to do. I read the message, then walked to my home office bookshelf and pulled out the leather-bound organizer where I'd meticulously recorded every account number, password, payment schedule, and customer service contact. Whenever my parents faced any technical difficulty, they called me. Whenever Chloe forgot a payment deadline, I handled it. This time, I firmly closed the notebook and returned it to the shelf. I refused to remain their unpaid administrative assistant. I wouldn't be the invisible support system they erased the moment I stopped being useful. 3 days later, Chloe's message appeared, "Are you seriously doing this? The electricity's scheduled for disconnection tomorrow. Are you really going to let your own family sit in the dark?" My response was concise: "I'm simply allowing everyone to experience the consequences of their own choices." Silence followed. Several days passed quietly until my phone rang with an unexpected caller, Eleanor, the elderly neighbor who'd lived beside my parents for 2 decades. "Your mother asked if I knew anyone interested in buying their house," she informed me gently. "I think they're struggling to manage on their own." I thanked her and ended the call. I didn't feel vindicated. I didn't smirk. But I didn't weep either. I simply sat by my bay window, watching sunlight filter through the maple trees, and realized something profound. For the first time in my adult life, I wasn't being suffocated by obligation or guilt. I had finally broken free from their cycle of dependency, and I had no intention of being pulled back in. The first message arrived Monday morning from an unexpected source, Mr. Reynolds, who'd lived beside my parents for over 2 decades. "Olivia, is everything all right with your parents?" Patricia seemed disoriented yesterday. She thought she had the wrong date, but she was holding a bank letter clearly marked notice of foreclosure. My stomach tightened as I stared at the screen. So it had finally happened, just 4 weeks after I stopped all financial support. 4 weeks for the house I'd meticulously maintained to begin its inevitable collapse. An hour later, Mom called twice. I didn't answer. Her message followed immediately: "Olivia, please. This is serious. We desperately need your help right now." I read it and set my phone down as if it concerned strangers. Yet my chest still felt heavy. I'd imagined this moment would bring some twisted satisfaction, but instead, it brought only hollow exhaustion. Perhaps because I'd spent too many years cleaning up everyone else's messes. 2 days later, Chloe appeared at my door, the first time in weeks. She stood there disheveled in a wrinkled designer sweater, no makeup, clutching a chaotic stack of financial documents. Her eyes betrayed raw panic. "Just 5 minutes, she pleaded breathlessly. "Please, Olivia, just 5 minutes." I blocked the doorway, arms crossed, my expression devoid of sympathy. "Let me guess, you need money?" "Not exactly," she stammered, her voice trembling. I need help understanding what the bank is saying. These terms make no sense. I'm completely overwhelmed." "What about your inheritance?" I asked, my tone as casual as discussing the weather forecast. She stared at her expensive boots and mumbled, "It's locked in some investment account. There's a penalty for early withdrawal." I never expected things would fall apart this quickly. I raised an eyebrow. "Yet you happily signed those inheritance documents without a second thought?" I assumed Mom and Dad had everything under control. They promised it was all arranged. I assumed, I echoed. "That's precisely your problem. You never think things through, do you?" Chloe fell silent. I stepped into the hallway, pulling my door firmly shut behind me. This is the lesson you desperately need to learn. Everyone faces challenges. But nobody grows when someone constantly rescues them from consequences. "You're seriously going to let them lose their home?" Her voice cracked. "I'm not letting anything happen. They made their choice by excluding me. Now they can live with it." I walked toward the elevator, leaving Chloe standing alone in the corridor. While attending an investment seminar at the community center, I bumped into Adrian, a former classmate who'd become a successful real estate agent. I was about to mention my latest property acquisition when he interrupted, eyes widening with recognition. "Hey, isn't your parents' house on Maple Drive?" he asked. I nodded silently. "Someone in my office mentioned them yesterday. They're urgently trying to sell. Beautiful old place but needs significant repairs. High foreclosure risk. Are you doing all right with all this?" I managed a slight smile. "I'm doing fine." Apparently, they're not. Adrian looked like he wanted to ask more but thought better of it. That evening, while reviewing property listings on my laptop, I noticed an email from a financial literacy organization I'd volunteered with years ago. They were recruiting mentors for a new program teaching seniors to manage housing debt and avoid predatory lending. I smiled thoughtfully. Life had a peculiar way of coming full circle. I sat quietly for several minutes before beginning the application, not for my parents' sake, not for Chloe, but for myself, the person who had finally learned the power of letting go. I no longer needed to rescue that old house. But if I could transform my painful experience into wisdom that might prevent others from falling into similar dependency traps, that would be genuinely worthwhile. Saturday afternoon, I had just finished hosting a property investment seminar and returned to my modern condo, anticipating nothing more than a glass of wine and a quiet evening reviewing contracts. As I pulled into the underground parking, my heart sank at the sight of a familiar black SUV near the entrance. 3 years ago, I had co-signed for that Navigator when my father Walter's credit wasn't sufficient for the loan. I transferred the title to him last year as a final act of goodwill. Now it stood there like an unwelcome reminder of past sacrifices. I stepped from my car, walking deliberately slowly. My parents waited anxiously by the building's entrance. Chloe hovered behind them, clutching her designer handbag, her usually confident expression replaced with barely concealed desperation. I remained silent, stopping several feet away, arms crossed firmly across my chest. Patricia spoke first, her voice quavering, "Olivia, I hate that we had to come unannounced, but everything's spiraling out of control. The bank has scheduled a final property assessment next week before foreclosure." Walter continued, his voice uncharacteristically subdued, "We made a terrible mistake. I recognize that now, but if we lose the house, your mother's health might not withstand the stress." I stared directly at him, my gaze icier than the February wind. "Then why, when drafting that will, did you decide I wasn't worth mentioning at all?" He lowered his eyes, fingers nervously adjusting his collar. "At the time, we thought you'd be fine on your own. You've always been the strong, capable one. While Chloe, I cut in sharply, gets endless second chances, complete forgiveness, and inherits everything. I sacrificed my entire 20s supporting this family unconditionally, and in return, I received nothing but dismissal and the presumption that Olivia will handle everything. That era is over." My mother's tears streamed down her lined face. "We never imagined it would deteriorate this quickly. Can't you help us, even temporarily, just until we stabilize our situation?" I shook my head firmly, feeling years of obligation dissolving like morning mist. "I'm refusing not because I lack resources. I'm refusing because the moment I step in, everyone will immediately revert to believing they never need to change their behavior." Chloe finally spoke, her voice uncharacteristically small. "I didn't understand how complicated managing a house would be. I thought everything would work out eventually. I never expected you to actually walk away." I turned toward her. "I didn't walk away suddenly. I warned repeatedly. I waited patiently. I hoped desperately. But this family chose to ignore every signal I sent." "Is this truly the end then?" Mom whispered, wiping fresh tears. I studied her, the woman I'd driven to countless doctor appointments, whose medications I'd organized weekly, whom I'd nursed through 2 surgeries. The distinction between biological connection and genuine love had never been clearer. "I didn't end this relationship," I stated firmly. "It ended when you decided which daughter deserved recognition and which one didn't." Silence engulfed us. The sharp winter wind whistled between buildings, carrying a bone-deep chill no coat could resist. I stepped toward my door, keys in hand. Before entering, I turned back one final time. "I genuinely hope you find a solution, but I will no longer be this family's safety net." I looked directly at Chloe and spoke with deliberate clarity. "If you genuinely want to become a responsible adult, this is your opportunity. I've stepped off this carousel of enabling. It's your turn to step up." I walked inside and shut the door firmly. The building's ventilation system muffled their retreating footsteps. I stood in my living room as afternoon sunlight cast long shadows across my hardwood floors. No tears, no anguish, just profound stillness. Complete peace. I believed after our confrontation they would retreat into silence. I'd hoped facing the truth would force them to reflect and back away, but I severely overestimated the self-awareness of people accustomed to living off others' generosity. A week later, Jessica, my colleague from the investment firm, messaged urgently, "Olivia, have you seen your mother's Facebook recently? She's posting some absolutely outrageous things." My fingers trembled as I typed Patricia Bennett into the search bar. Her timeline overflowed with emotional posts, garden photos, and inspirational quotes. What made my blood freeze was a prominent post featuring a picture of the family home. "My heart is shattered. Our eldest daughter has abandoned her sick, aging parents, turning her back on family and refusing assistance during our greatest hardship, after all we sacrificed raising her." Over 120 shares. The comments section brimmed with sympathy, virtual hugs, and harsh judgments about the selfish, ungrateful daughter. I bit my lip hard enough to taste blood as I scrolled further, discovering another post from my father Walter. "We believed Olivia truly valued family, but when we needed her most, she vanished without explanation. We're facing imminent foreclosure while she pretends we don't exist. Then came Chloe's post with her signature condescending tone. Some people only show kindness when they're in positions of power. The moment family asks them to step down and help, they choose abandonment. Apparently that's what passes for strength these days. My grip tightened around my phone. I wasn't angry or shocked, just bone-weary. When emotional manipulation failed, they escalated to public humiliation. But they'd forgotten something crucial. I was no longer willing to remain silent. That evening, I logged into my rarely used Facebook account. I crafted a single, powerful post, no fancy formatting or emotional language, just stark, undeniable truth. My family is presenting a dangerously incomplete narrative. In the interest of fairness, here's the complete story from my perspective. I attached a photograph of the will clearly showing Chloe as the sole beneficiary. I uploaded images of mortgage payments, utility bills, insurance documents, all bearing my name. Finally, I included Mom's last text requesting $3,200 for the mortgage. I concluded with one sentence: my silence was never acceptance. I was simply waiting for the right moment to reveal the truth. That moment has arrived. Within minutes, comments appeared. Olivia, I had no idea you were carrying this burden alone. This is unbelievable. A former nursing colleague wrote, you're literally the most generous person I know. Never doubt your worth. People began sharing my post exponentially. Acquaintances who knew my parents joined the conversation. I always wondered how Chloe maintained her lifestyle without steady employment. This explains everything. Nobody deserves such exploitation, especially from their own family. My post gained traction rapidly, not through sensationalism, but through its raw honesty and undeniable evidence. 2 days later, Mom deleted all her posts. Dad deactivated his entire account. Chloe predictably changed her profile picture to a black and white sunset, her trademark dramatic response whenever situations escaped her control. I added nothing further. I posted no follow-ups. I simply sat in my condo, watching raindrops trace patterns down my windows, feeling for the first time that justice had prevailed. I never needed their apologies or submission, I simply needed the manipulation to end. And finally, they seemed to comprehend that I could no longer be emotionally exploited. One honest post had shattered years of enforced silence. Now I was authoring my next chapter, not through social media, but through deliberate, purposeful living. Since publishing that truth-revealing post, I haven't received a single word from Patricia, Walter, or Chloe. The silence has been complete, like a still mountain lake after a violent thunderstorm. But this wasn't the tense silence of anticipation, this was the silence of final acceptance. They had lost the only person who consistently returned to repair the damage they regularly inflicted. Meanwhile, I experienced the opposite transformation. I finally began to truly live. Every Tuesday morning, I enthusiastically led my first real estate investment workshop for young professionals. The way their faces brightened when they understood how property appreciation worked, how they viewed financial security through new perspectives, it reminded me that perception varies dramatically between individuals, and sometimes you must intentionally choose your viewpoint. During evenings, I immersed myself in an advanced financial analysis course, knowledge I desperately wanted for years but postponed because my family required my immediate attention. Now, nobody needed me. And that independence filled me with exhilarating freedom I'd never before experienced. I began taking morning jogs through the park, unhurried and lighthearted. I experimented with gourmet recipes on weekends, sharing photos online without fearing criticism about being pretentious. I developed genuine friendships with classmates who didn't define me as the family caretaker. For the first time, I existed simply as myself. While I was rediscovering joy, across town, the house at 472 Maple Drive appeared on multiple real estate listings. Derek, my realtor colleague, messaged me, Olivia, your parents' property just hit the market at $425,000, but receiving zero interest. The inspection report shows significant roof damage and electrical code violations. I felt no surprise. No one remained to repair circuit breakers at midnight. No one to replace the failing water heater or schedule timely maintenance. No more Olivia. That house had survived exclusively through my efforts. Now it reflected undeniable reality, neglected, deteriorating, with nobody willing to preserve it. Eleanor, the elderly neighbor, called to check on me. Before ending our conversation, she mentioned casually, by the way, Chloe appears to have moved back with your parents. I see her running errands frequently. She looks rather stressed and unhappy. I glanced up from my investment portfolio spreadsheet, taking a sip of my premium Italian roast. Previously, such news would have triggered immediate anxiety and responsibility. Now I simply felt a detached sense of inevitability. Perhaps what Chloe truly needed was to experience firsthand the instability she had comfortably ignored while I handled everything. I took no pleasure in their struggles. I simply refused to shoulder the burden of decisions I hadn't made. For the first time in 8 years, my investment accounts showed consistent, substantial growth. I booked a summer investment conference in Chicago. I purchased a luxury condo unit in an upcoming development, something I'd previously dismissed as selfish extravagance. I was learning to invest in myself with the same dedication I'd once given my entire family. I launched a personal finance blog focused on breaking free from financial codependency. Several articles went viral. Dozens of readers messaged me, expressing profound gratitude for articulating experiences they'd struggled to name. One rainy Thursday afternoon, while analyzing market trends at my favorite downtown cafe, my phone displayed a notification: price reduced by $50,000 on property at 472 Maple. Motivated seller seeking immediate offers. I studied the property photos: deteriorating shingles, sagging porch, peeling exterior paint. That house once represented obligation, burden, and unmet expectations. Now it was simply another distressed property needing renovation. And I was no longer its designated savior. I clicked dismiss notification, set down my phone, and felt a genuine smile spread across my face, a weightless, liberating smile deeper than all the disappointments I'd silently absorbed through the years. I had finally outgrown that chapter of my life. One crisp spring morning, I stood at the edge of Silver Lake, testing my new professional camera. Golden sunlight filtered through budding trees, casting shimmering reflections across the water. I paused, raised the viewfinder to my eye, and captured a perfect moment: a young father teaching his daughter to skip stones, both laughing with unbridled joy. In that quiet instant, I understood with sudden clarity that some relationships aren't meant to be preserved because they were never truly authentic. I once believed family bonds were unbreakable, that blood connections transcended all conflict. Now I recognize that genuine family isn't defined by genetics but by mutual respect and sincere gratitude. I had sacrificed everything, desperately hoping to be valued. My reward? Becoming the name deliberately omitted from a will. The daughter labeled cold and calculating for finally refusing to shoulder everyone else's responsibilities. The anger that once burned inside me had completely dissolved. I had simply released my grip on expectations. They still occupied that deteriorating house, now listed for sale a third time with another significant price reduction. I heard through industry colleagues that when potential buyers visited, Chloe attempted to portray herself as a knowledgeable homeowner. But when questioned about maintenance records or renovation history, she would fumble awkwardly, because throughout those years of dependency, nobody bothered learning these essential skills. I never returned. Not even once. Patricia sent a handwritten letter in her distinctive blue stationery with the flowing script I'd recognize anywhere. She described her restless nights not knowing how to start over, mentioned that Walter's health isn't what it used to be. Her closing lines read, "I don't know how much time remains to repair our relationship, but if you're open to trying, I'm still here." I carefully folded the letter without tearing it. I didn't respond. I placed it in my desk drawer beside investment prospectuses and half-completed business plans, items requiring time for proper consideration and processing. I harbored no hatred. I simply lacked the emotional resources to continue giving without acknowledgement. I continued building my investment portfolio, teaching financial literacy classes, and growing my business. I even hosted a small seminar at a local business incubator, sharing strategies that chronicled my journey toward financial independence, diversified investments, property rehabilitation projects, passive income streams, and the psychological freedom that comes with financial security. After the presentation, a professional woman approached, clasped my hand firmly, and observed, "There's something remarkable about your investment approach. It feels like it's expressing what many people have felt but couldn't articulate." I smiled without commenting, recognizing the truth in her words. I had dedicated my existence to remaining silent, maintaining family peace, fulfilling the dutiful daughter role, hoping sufficient sacrifice might eventually earn the recognition I craved. Now I'd embraced a different form of peace, not derived from external validation, but from honoring my own worth. I've mastered self-compassion. I've learned to establish boundaries without remorse. I've accepted that others must face their own consequences. Most critically, I've stopped dwelling on the past. They remain my biological family on documents and in memories, but they no longer dictate my decisions. I can't predict whether reconciliation lies ahead or if our current separation will persist, but that uncertainty no longer troubles me because I've finally internalized this truth: family isn't limited to those sharing your surname. True family comprises those who cherish your presence, who don't exploit your generosity, who ensure you feel valued and chosen. And if my biological family cannot offer that, I've discovered that's perfectly acceptable, because I have myself. That's enough. My journey isn't some tragedy. It's an awakening. I once believed that dedication and sacrifice inevitably earned recognition, that family bonds were immutable. The reality. Nobody deserves exploitation, even from blood relatives. I've learned to establish clear boundaries, to withdraw when necessary, and to prioritize myself without guilt. Today, I live with unprecedented lightness and contentment, not because they transformed, but because I finally evolved. What's your perspective on Olivia's decisions? Was she excessively harsh, or was this boundary setting essential for self-preservation? Share your thoughts below, and subscribe for more authentic stories about navigating complex family relationships.